How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Tom. So for a while now, I've been saying that I'm going to do a series on woodworking as a business and all the things that are entailed in that. And it's taken me a long time. I planned to do this months ago, but I have a day job, I have a life, I have a woodworking business. This YouTube thing is basically my third job, so I can only get to things as fast as I can get to them, but we're finally going to do that. We're going to start that today. At this point, I'm not sure exactly how many videos that's going to be. I'm thinking probably 4-ish. But in this one, I'm going to be discussing how and why I set up my business entity in accordance with the laws and requirements where I live, and give you some very, very basic knowledge on that process and how it went for me, and hopefully give you an idea of how you can get the correct information to do what you need to do to set up yours. You're going to see me reading a lot. There's a lot to talk about here, so I have a script actually, but these are essentially my notes. So I apologize, I don't have a teleprompter. I'm not that fancy. So I'm going to be looking up and down as I talk to you, and hopefully that'll be okay. But anyway, the other videos in this series will be focused on things like where and how to sell your products, what you'll need and what you need to do to prepare for your first live selling event, and then how I've learned to store and transport my products so that they don't get dirty or messed up from being left in a dusty environment. Like my garage, at one point I had everything in there and it got all covered with dust, and it's lacquer, and it's 110 degrees in the summer, and recipe for trouble there for a lot of different reasons. Then I would bring it into the house and I would have them laying all over the place, and the kids would mess around with them and the wife would move them around, and it was just super problematic because things kept getting messed up. I can't tell you how many things ended up in the burn pile because of that. And then also it keeps this method also keeps them protected while transporting them. It kind of kills all birds with one stone sort of thing, because I was just tossing everything into the cab or the bed of my truck, piling everything up, driving it back and forth to events. Things would slip, fall, slide against each other, bang against things. I'd have to slam on my brakes because some jerk in front of me cut me off, or whatever it was. Things would get messed up, and tons of stuff ended up on the burn pile. And I developed this method to fix that. And anyway, that's going to be one of the videos too. I don't want to get too much into that now. But today we're going to talk about what it took for me to set up my woodworking business entity. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around, because that's what we're going to do in this video. All right, so to start with, I need to put a disclaimer out there. This is not tax or business entity advice. I am not an accountant, I'm not a tax person, I'm not an attorney, I'm not licensed in anything, so I am not anyone or any type of a person that you should be directly taking business advice from. My intention here is to just go over the very basics and the process that I went through to set mine up, how I got from here to here, what I needed based on where I live and the laws and regulations of where I live, and of course the country. Specific to my location. That should at least give you a foundation to start from, to know where to get your information from, or so you can go and find and look up your own information and find the right people to talk to get yours set up the way that you need to for where you live. It should hopefully give you at least an idea of where to start. All right, so for me, the whole thing started when a new craft fair type venue opened up in my town, very close to my house. At that time, I had been woodworking as a hobby for a couple of years, but I already knew at that point that I wanted to make a side business out of it. Not only did I want to start selling things so that I could feed my obsession for woodworking without losing my house or making my wife and kids go hungry, but I also knew that I was at a point in my woodworking journey where I was going to start investing in a lot of better, bigger, safer, more professional, and much more expensive tools and equipment. And I knew that doing that under the umbrella of a business would allow me to use certain tax benefits that come along with that. All right, so this new venue opens up near me, which is basically like a permanent craft fair. It's an outdoor craft fair. It's kind of like a swap meet or a flea market, if you're familiar with those terms, I guess, where there are rows of vendors, and there's an entertainment area and like a food vendor area. There's a stage where they can do live music. They have a big grassy area there where they have like cornhole and games for kids to play, and it's a whole thing that they bought this land and they built it up specifically for that reason. And so the first time we went there, we're walking around checking it out, and the very first vendor spot as you walked in was reserved for the venue, and they had a bunch of information and pamphlets and things in there and people to talk to. And one of the things that they were there for was to tell you how to become a vendor there. And so I stopped in, picked up a pamphlet, asked some questions, and that's where I got started. So I learned on that day that in order to be a vendor in that particular venue, that I would need a few things. One, I would need a business license. I would need a seller's permit, and we're going to kind of go over what all this is later. Again, this is specific to where I live, but I would need a vendor's license or a business license, a seller's permit, and I would need liability insurance. Those were the 3 requirements that you would have to show to them in order to become a vendor at that particular place. So I went home, I fired up the computer, and then I Googled my life away for several hours trying to figure out how to do all that stuff, and that's how I got started. All right, so now I should also say that these requirements were specific to this venue, and not all venues have the same requirements. In fact, most venues that I've seen don't have any requirements at all, other than you got to pay them their fee for your spot. I'm guessing the reason for that is at the end of the day, it's your responsibility to take care of your own business and to make sure you're doing everything above board and legally. But since this place is permanent, rather than one of those one-off pop-up type of occasional venues, like craft fair things, they're just making sure that their vendors were meeting minimum requirements in order to mitigate their own risks. That's just my assumption. But anyway, my initial research into getting that started with business license, and that led me to calling my tax lady and asking her some questions, and that's how I got started. All right, so first things first, where it all begins is with taxes. Nobody likes taxes. Nobody likes to pay taxes. Nobody likes to do taxes. Nobody likes to talk about taxes. But when it comes to starting a business, that's kind of the center point of getting started. And that's what I learned after doing the research into the business license and then talking to my tax lady and all that. And take it from someone who has not only been audited, but has had to pay back the IRS some money in the past, and it had nothing to do with the business. In my case, it was related to living overseas for many, many years and moving around a lot and, just messing things up and not having a good tax person. I was either doing them myself or, going to H&R Block. And, that's why I learned that at a certain point in your life, you'll learn that it's better to go to a tax professional, especially if you have business related stuff, and we'll kind of get to that in a second. But anyway, I will tell you, you do not want to get on the wrong side of either the IRS or your state franchise tax board or franchise board or whatever they call it in your state. In California, it's a California State Tax Franchise Board or something like that. But anyway, you don't want to get on their wrong side, especially now. Any of you that keep up with current events and politics and that sort of thing probably know what I'm talking about, and I'll just leave that there. But right now, the IRS is one organization that you do not want to get on the wrong side of, trust me. So anyway, again, okay, there are a lot of people that are running small side gigs under the table. They make a little bit of money. They sell things at craft fairs. Some of them, I think, probably even sell on, I don't know about Etsy. I've never sold on Etsy before, and we'll talk about that in a different video. But they're selling things, friends, family, maybe craft fairs, and they're not paying taxes on it. They're not reporting it, whatever. That's on them. They'll tell you, oh, you don't need to do that. You're just a small side business. Nobody's ever going to know. But here's the thing, and this is my opinion again. But if you're going to run a business, no matter the scale of it, you should do it with honesty, with integrity, and completely and totally legally. That's just my thought on it. I'm sure there are a lot of people that don't think that. There's a lot of people out there who don't get caught doing that. But that's not only a risk that I'm personally not willing to take, it just goes against everything that I believe and the way that I was raised and the way that I choose to live my life. So you have to make your own decisions based on those things and what they mean to you. But my advice to you is to do everything completely above the board, completely legally, and cover your backside. I mean, you need to eliminate the risk for yourself, and the best way to do that is by doing everything the right way. In my day job, I am a quality manager, so I kind of live by that mantra, so take that as it is. But that is my advice to you, person to person. Okay, that said, first and foremost, what I would tell you is you need to find a good tax person. If you don't have one now, when you start a business, you will need one for lots of different reasons. Depending on the person and what they're willing to do for you, is one thing. If you can afford it, paying somebody to be an accountant to do your books and keep track of everything. Oh my God, if I could afford that, that would be awesome, but I can't. I have to do that myself. But my tax lady is awesome, and we'll talk about her in a minute. But the first thing you need to do is you need to find a good tax person, accountant, tax attorney, business attorney, whatever is appropriate for where you live and for doing a business in your area. But at a minimum, you need somebody who has knowledge and experience in these things in your area that can help guide you through this, because it can be pretty complicated. Maybe in some places it's not. In fact, I live in California, so it's very complicated here, and we'll get to that in a second. And some of you may live in places where it's as simple as filling out a few things online, paying $15, and you're off and good to go. But anyway, again, your situation is going to be different than mine. I'm just telling you what it was for me so that you can do the appropriate research and talk to the right people and do what you need to do the right thing for you. All right, so that being said, again, and I'm going to say that over and over again because I don't want anybody to think I'm giving any kind of advice here as an attorney or a tax person or anything even remotely like that. But anyway, for me, I already had an awesome tax lady because my wife is a realtor, which for tax purposes is very similar to owning a business, actually. The first year my wife was a realtor, I tried to do the taxes myself, and I ended up paying through the nose because I had no idea what I was doing. And then I got a tax person and saw the light. You pay an extra few $100s a year to that tax person, and trust me, it's worth every single penny. At least it is for me. That's how it is for me. Could be different for you, but that's how it is for me. But anyway, I would strongly suggest that if you're going to do this as a business, that you get a tax person, because they know the things that you need to do in order to do things the right way for where you live, not only for the IRS, but for your local taxes. And that's who helped me out immensely with mine. And again, we'll get to that in a second. So and mine not only advised me on getting started, but also on how to just generally to run my business and keep my books and do my accounting and all these things, because that can be pretty complicated too, based on what kind of entity you set up. Your records, the kind of documentation that you need to keep, the receipts. I mean, it's a lot. Let me tell you this. If you're thinking about starting a business, you need to understand this one thing fundamentally, particular to woodworking anyway. Woodworking is awesome. I love it. It's cathartic. It's my favorite thing to do. I wish I could do it full time. But in order to do it legally, you have to do it as a business. And there's a lot that comes along with that. And I will tell you, running the business side of a business is 80%. Right now, you think all the woodworking that you're doing is 100% of what you need to do. And then there's just a few paperworks at the end of the year, keep your receipts, and you're good to go. Doing the business side of a business is a ton of work. It is the majority of your work once you start doing it. I'm not trying to scare you off, but I'm just being honest with you here. You got to be willing to put in the time and the effort and the hours and the tears to get it all done. It's not easy. there's a lot of other stuff that you need to do to run your business day to day that just takes a lot of time and effort. And you have to keep track of everything that you buy. You have to keep track of everything that you sell. You have to keep track of your materials and again, it depends how your tax person does your taxes, but you might need to keep track of your gas mileage and your mileage. Generally, how many miles you use for your business, how many miles you use not for your business, anything you spend on food, on tools, on materials, on taxes, on God, it's so much. It's a lot. I made a spreadsheet for myself to keep all that stuff, so that I can put it in there. And honestly, I don't keep up with it as much as I should. In fact, at the end of the year, I spend 3 or 4 days getting that thing completely filled out. But I usually have a big old stack of receipts, and it's just, oh man, it's a horrible hassle. There's other ways to do it. There's software that'll help you, like QuickBooks and things like that. And you got to figure out what works for you. And again, you're going to do that in conjunction with your tax person. That person is key, for me anyway. That person is key. So just keep all that in mind. But anyway, that is what it is. So, and then your tax person will tell you these things because not only does it make your life easier and help you to do things the right way, but it also makes her or his life easier and yours at the end of the year when it comes time to file your taxes, because you'll have all your stuff together. And that's my most hated time of the year, because it takes me like a week or more to get, probably about 2 weeks for me and my wife to get all of our stuff together to send off to her so that she can do her part of it. It's, unless you're an accounting type person by nature, it's terrible, horrible work, but it has to be done. All right, so I want to stress again, it's all specific to my situation where I live, but in my case, in order to get a business license, which was the first thing that I looked at, was I needed to get an EIN. If you don't know what that is, an EIN is an employer identification number. It is basically your federal identification number from the IRS for your business, kind of like your social security number is for you as an individual, right? So when you file your taxes, everything, when you set up your business accounts for various things, like I needed it to get my business license, and I needed it to set up my banking account for my business, and anything related to the business with YouTube, for Google AdSense, all that stuff. You got to have an EIN for that, because that's how they process their tax requirements when it comes to you, especially people that pay you. So anyway, the EIN again is basically your social security number for your business from the IRS. All right, so my tax lady did the paperwork for me. It's online. She go in. It didn't take her but 10 minutes, I think. As I understand it, it's a very simple process. I'm sure you can Google it or go onto the IRS website, and there's just instructions on how to do that. But my understanding is it's very simple and easy. You just fill out some basic information, and then you get it. And she did it for me, and she sent it to me, and that's how I got started. Once I got that, I knew that for where I lived in my city, in my state, my business license would come from the city that I lived in. So I had to go to City Hall to do that, and that involved doing an application, paying a fee, that sort of thing, standing in line. So I went over there to do that, and one of the things that I had to disclose to them that they asked me on the application is physically, where's your business going to be located? And in my case, and in probably most woodworkers' cases, it's going to be in my house. Some people do it in their basement. Some people do it in a shed behind their house. Some people do it like me in my garage. My 2-car garage is my wood shop. But that is the physical location of my business. And they wanted to know that. And for where I lived, that required yet another permit that I had to get to operate a business out of my residence. So that was another application process I had to go through, another fee that I had to pay. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like 3 times what the business license cost. The business license was somewhere around $50, and I have to pay that every year where I live. I have to renew it every year. But this other permit to operate the business out of my residence, at least for me, for where I live, was a one-time thing, and it was, I don't remember, 100, 150 bucks, 200 bucks, I don't know. It was quite a deal more expensive, at least twice as much. It was at least $100, I think, but I don't remember exactly. But anyway, you pay that one time, then you pay the annual business license fee. At least I do, for me, for here. So anyway, that I learned there was something else that I needed. I asked them a lot of questions while I was there, and in my case, they were very, very helpful, and I'm really grateful and thankful to them for that. Not only were they patient and answering all my questions, because they want to make sure that the businesses operating under their purview are doing the right thing as well, right? And they actually had a handout to give to people like me that had all of these different contact information and places for, like, if you need this, call this organization. If you need this, call this place. If you need this, call this place. And they had all that stuff, or go to this website, or fill out this thing online. Or it was an information sheet that had all that stuff on it. Very helpful to me, because at that point, the way that this worked for me was I started there, and as I started there, I went to the next step, and then the next step led me to the next step, and as you go, you learn. I need this now. I need this now. I need this. And it's, at least in California, it's very complicated, very, very complicated. There was no one-stop shop for someone to show me or tell me exactly what to do, besides the advice from my tax lady again, which was invaluable. But, I kind of had to work my way through it. But anyway, it all started with getting the EIN so I could get the business license. And then to get the business license, I had to get that permit to operate out of my house. And I got that, I paid for all that, and I walked out of City Hall with my business license, right? So one of the things that I learned while I was there was that the next thing that I would need to do was I would need to get a seller's permit. Now, this is a thing specific to California. I imagine there's something similar in most other places, but not only are you have to register for taxes with the IRS for the income that you make from the business, but in California anyway, the state that I live in, and more specifically the county, I then have to register to get to pay sales tax for the things that I sell. Like when you go to the store and you buy something at Home Depot and you have a sales tax, 7, 8, 9%, whatever it is where you live, Home Depot has to pay that to the state. And as a business, that's what I have to do as well. So I had to basically register with the state, and the means for doing that here for me was to get a seller's permit, and I had to do that with the county that I live in. And I was able to do that online. I did it as a combination online and over the phone. I called them and asked them a bunch of questions. But you go online, again, you fill out some basic information. You pay a small, I don't know, honestly, I don't remember if I had to pay a fee for that or not. I would assume that I did. I don't think it was much, though. And then you get a seller's permit, and then you have to keep that up. So, and again, this goes to taxes, and it's not really part of this video, but the weird thing with sales tax here is that you have to file them every year by the end of July. So basically, I have 2 tax seasons in my life now, where I do my federal and state taxes at the beginning of the year, and now in the middle of the year, I have to do my sales tax stuff for my business, which involves you filing a tax return just like the other way. Just so happens with me here, I can call them and they walk me through it, and you do it online, and that's the way I do it every year because I don't want to mess it up. So I make them sit on the phone with me for like an hour and walk me through the whole thing, and they don't want you to mess it up either. So anyway, that's the way it is here, and that was the next step for me doing what I needed to do. The other thing that I needed specific to that venue was insurance, and we'll come back to that in a second. As part of going through the rest of this process, I learned not only from that sheet that I had gotten from my city hall, but also from talking to the city hall and the council and the county for my seller's permit and all of that, was that the other requirement was, in this case, my business was named Maverick Designs. It was not named Tom's Woodworking or my full name or anything like that. And the law here is, if your business is your name, then you don't need this. But if your business is called something other than your name, you need to get a DBA, which is basically another filing or permit, I guess, kind of thing, where you basically let them know that you're operating your business under an alias, and in my case it's Maverick Designs. DBA means doing business as. That's just what they call it here. Again, it's a simple thing that you do. You fill out some information and pay a fee, and you get your DBA. So that's something else that you need. But anyway, where I live for here, that's what I need. So we'll recap later. And then so finally, the insurance thing. I don't think that's probably necessary everywhere, but I would highly recommend it. I mean, you're making stuff out of wood. Somebody could get a splinter from something that you make and try to sue you and take your house away from you. And that goes to the business entity thing, which I forgot to cover when I was getting the business license, so we'll get right back to that in a second. But anyway, I would get liability insurance. I mean, you want to be insured in case something bad happens, and that's what it's for. It's for liability, and that's what I needed for that one particular vendor or venue anyway. And honestly, I've never actually sold at that place. I've done lots of other places that didn't actually require that, but I've had the insurance. I've always had it, and I will continue to keep it. I don't know what it's going to cost for you. I don't know. I can tell you where I got mine. Mine comes from Liberty Mutual. But there are other places I'm sure you can talk to whoever your insurance broker is, and they can guide you to where you need to go, or you can call the one that I do mine through or whatever. But I pay about $30 a month for mine. $33 a month for mine. So it's not like terribly expensive, but it's just another added cost of doing business legally as a business. So you just have to keep that in mind. Every year you got to pay your fee for your business license, if that's the way it works where you live. I got to pay my insurance. You got to pay your taxes, file your sales taxes. I mean, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of paperwork to keep. Now, going back to the business entity thing, when I went to get my business license, I had to tell them as part of that what kind of business it was, what kind of entity it's going to be. And there's lots of different business entities, and I am not well versed in them, so I will just give you the very basics of my understanding, which is not great. But you need to talk to somebody who knows more about it than I do. But anyway, you have, at the most basic level, sole proprietorship. That's what my business currently is. But sole proprietorship basically means that you are the owner of your business, and that has the least amount of requirements on you. Like, you don't, where I live, you have a lot more latitude to, with what you do with the money and how you hold it and where you keep it and that sort of thing. But it's the simplest way. And I think depending on what you're trying to do, and again, you need to consult somebody who knows these things better than I do, but you need to decide what's best for you. The next step up from that would be an LLC, and I'm sure you've heard of that. Basically, my understanding of an LLC is that separates you personally from the business. So if something goes wrong and somebody sues you or sues your business for something, they actually are suing the LLC, and it isolates you. Again, I am not a professional at this. This is my understanding. Seek out professional advice. It isolates you from being sued for like your house or your cars or your stuff or your personal bank accounts. And it just sues the business. And again, I don't know all the specifics of that, but that's an extra added layer of protection. That would be better. In my case, I didn't go with that because I was just starting out, and here in California, you have to pay basically a tax up front to be an LLC, and it's like, I don't know, $700 or $800 a year. It's a lot. So like, you have to pay basically several $100s a year just for the LLC here in California. And again, even if you live in California, look this up, do your own research, ask your own questions, seek out professional advice. But anyway, that's why I didn't do it. My business is still relatively small, but when it grows to a certain point that I'm going to have to move to a different entity, I think probably to better protect myself. But anyway, just so you understand, you're going to have to tell them probably when you get your business license what your business entity is, and At the simplest level, it's a sole proprietorship, at least here where I am. And then again, with an LLC or an S corp, and there's various higher levels than that. With that comes other things. You have to do things like have meeting minutes for annual meetings, and it just makes everything more complicated. You can't intermingle your money whatsoever. Your business money has to stay here. Your personal money has to stay there. There's a very distinct line between them, and you have to stick to that. I do that anyway because it's just good practice, and that's what my tax person advised me to do. I opened a business account. I do all my business stuff out of that account, and I keep it separate from my personal stuff as much as I can. But again, do what's right for you, for where you live, and with the advice of a professional that you seek out to get that from. So anyway, that's basically it. To recap, do some research. Google it. I spent hours online doing it. Maybe even look around at different places where you're thinking of selling and find out what their requirements are, because that will help you get started into looking at what you need to get. But at the very basic minimum, you're going to need an EIN. I'm sure you're going to need a business license. Those two things you're probably going to have. And then you need to make sure that you're doing everything legally and complying with whatever taxes locally and federally that you need to comply with. That's just my story. That's how I set my stuff up. Yours is more than likely going to be different, but I just wanted to give you an idea of kind of the steps that I took to get where I was at, and you can do the same way. But I would again start with finding a professional to help guide you. Or maybe just you can try going to your local town hall or wherever it is you get your business license from where you live, and maybe they can give you additional information that's specific to your area. But just my advice to you is to do everything on the up and up. Make sure you're complying with everything legally, and make sure that you're doing everything right tax-wise. And that's all I can think of for now. So we'll wrap up this video with that. If you have any questions, again, seek out a professional. Honestly, in this case, I won't even tell you to ask me in the comments, because I don't want to give out any kind of specific advice about anything. Again, my intention here was just to tell you my story, how and why I did what I did. But my stuff is all above board. It's a terrible pain in the backside to keep it that way, and to do all that. But it is what it is. That's the way I run. That's the way I operate. And just again, be aware that the business side of it is, once you start doing it, is way more than the woodworking side of it, and it takes away from your time to do that. So just be aware of that. All right, that's going to wrap it up. So thanks for watching. As always, stay safe, happy woodworking, and I'll see you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe on your way out. If you haven't already, I'd appreciate it. See you on the next one. Tax person. I am not an expert, licensed in any way, shape, or form to do that kind of thing. So please shut up and take it from someone who is. Dakota, shut up! What am I forgetting? I'm forgetting something. I'm going to sit here and think about it until I remember what it is. And then I'll cut it in the appropriate place later. Ah.